This episode of Mega64 Movie Club has 3 rules. Rule 1,
don't talk about Mega64 Club.
No,
No,
you should, because I want people to know.
No, that one's
Rule 2.
Not the rule. Okay, yeah.
Do not talk about Mega64 Club.
No, that's the opposite of what is
not
good.
what we want.
Okay, rule 3.
Rule 3. Oh,
Don't.
wait. Sorry, wrong movie.
No.
Watch this after midnight.
No, you
This
can't.
is the most important one.
No, rule 4. Don't get us wet.
Nope.
Okay.
Too late. Hey, too late. Let's just start the episode.
Okay. Theme song. No, you don't do that here.
No.
Fuck.
This episode, I picked the movie. It was Gremlins, 1984 Gremlins movie, directed by Joe Dante. I've been like catching up during all the whatever you want to call it, shutdown, quarantine, whatever you want to say. I like to support a lot of the smaller sites, especially when they sell media. Companies like Shout Factory, companies like Arrow Video that sell these, like they'll make Blu-rays of kind of obscure movies, whatever. And I've been picking up a lot from Shout Factory and stuff, and all of them are directed by Joe Dante. They're all
really?
I got Matinee, that was Joe Dante. I got The Burbs with Tom Hanks. It ends up being Joe Dante. So Gremlins got kind of re-released in like 4K and stuff recently, and I was like, oh, I'll check that out. I haven't seen it in a million years. Joe Dante yet again. I'm getting tired of this Joe Dante dude.
Well, rest assured, his career is over now.
Yeah,
I think he's like a television director doing episodes of CSI, Riverside or something.
Yeah, which kind of actually made me sad because I enjoyed most of all of what I saw. Like, it was just kind of mind-blowing to me. I look at all these directors doing all these big movies from that era, and they're all still huge, and then he's nowhere. And it was kind of like, oh, I mean, a lot of them flopped, so I guess it makes sense. But anyway,
this didn't flop, though.
What's that?
This did not flop.
Yeah, no, this did not. I don't think.
This is probably the biggest hit of his entire career.
Has to be. Yeah. I think it has to be.
And so he directed this, produced by Steven Spielberg, so you had the Spielberg cred on it. What was weird for me was growing up, I felt like Gremlins 2, I don't know how it was for you guys. Gremlins 2 I saw on TV all the time. But Gremlins 1, for some reason, they would not play. Like, just catching movies on TV and stuff. I had remembered much of the parts of the plot, but the reason I picked this movie is I was like, I don't know if I've ever actually sat down and sat through the entire original Gremlins. I don't know if I ever had. So that's why I wanted to pick it. And,
I haven't seen any of the sequels of this. Have you guys seen those?
Yeah, there's just the one, Gremlins 2.
Oh, just the one?
Yeah.
Is there a part where this is a side tangent, sorry, but where Gremlins roll down some dirt hill, like balls of them are rolling people? I think that there is.
That might be in
the story, because Jenny said they filmed that by where she used to live, and they went on a hike one time, and they found one of these like fur balls that they shot the movie.
Really?
So she has somewhere in her parents' attic, I'm sure somewhere, is like this gremlin prop that they used once.
Dude, let's auction it. Let's find it.
Okay, I'll find it. I'll find it and make a shitload of money from the Gremlins 2 ball.
So anyway, it was cool to kind of visit this. And watching it, it's definitely an 80s movie, but I liked it. I don't know what you guys thought. I mean, I think I love creative practical effects, so it spoke to that, I like that. And
yeah, definitely. I like it was written by Chris Columbus. I think this is one of his first films, and so it seemed like everybody attached to this movie went on to become really successful and famous, except Joe Dante.
Yeah.
Right.
Poor Joe Dante.
Seriously.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So this was his era, That was it.
This movie, I don't think I've experienced something like this before. Act 2 is by far my favorite part of the movie. Blows my mind how good Act 2 was, and everything else. Act 1 and 3 were like, But anyways, we'll get into my final reviews later. But I was blown away by the second act of this movie.
I think for me, what I like in a movie is, and this movie does it, where you take something really bizarre and you give it very strict rules, and it makes it feel like, is this a real thing? Like, what is this based on? Like, what is this? And so I always thought, even just as a kid, knowing, just not even seeing the movie, but hearing about it and knowing all these rules about gremlins and what, you can't feed them after a certain hour and don't get them wet and all this stuff. I was just like, what is this? Is this based on something? Like, what is it? Just adds to that realism, I guess. And so I always dig when they do something like that. But anyway, if you want to, so I dug that, but do you want to get into it, Derek, or kind of summarize?
Let's get into the plot of Gremlins. Now, before we get into the plot of Gremlins, I want to talk a little bit about the folklore and mythology of Gremlins, which I find really interesting, because Gremlins are a mythical creature that date back less than 100 years.
Yeah.
Gremlins first appeared in World War II.
Yeah.
Or very closely around then. Some people would say they may have appeared as early as World War I, but there's no written documentation of that. The original Gremlins haunted the Royal British Air Force. They were creatures that would get inside the airplane and cause the airplane to fail mid-flight. So if a plane, I guess this was a big problem back then, planes falling out of the sky for no reason, people would say it was the Gremlins.
Yeah. And
so
it's funny. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. What's up?
I was just going to say, somehow I did know about this, and the reason I knew about it, strangely, is when I was a kid, my grandma used to have just tons of tapes of old Looney Tunes. Like, Looney Tunes would be on TV, and she would just tape them all because she knew I would want to watch them. And so many of them were old and racist, but there were tons of them, or at least a few that had, it would be like this. They must have been done around World War II time, but they would be flying jets, and they would have gremlins always messing up the engine.
The little green men with the helmets.
Yeah.
Those Looney Tunes depictions, what those gremlins look like, that's actually very accurate to how they were supposedly depicted in real life. Those Looney Tunes cartoons are probably the most accurate depiction of what a real gremlin, quote unquote, an actual gremlin would be.
Yeah.
They look like that, and they fuck with airplanes.
Okay, yeah. So I grew up knowing about that for some reason.
Yeah, if you look at the Wikipedia page for Gremlins, there's a bunch of awesome old posters from World War II warning people about gremlins. And they say things like, gremlins think it's fun to hurt you. Yeah. Gremlins love to throw things in your eyes, so wear protective eye covering. Gremlins love to pour grease on the floor. Gremlins love to push you around. Gremlins love square corners because they can get in them and kink them open. They hate rounded corners. So all these strange rules surrounding these creatures. So it was only 40 years later that Chris Columbus took that idea and rolled it up into his movie, Gremlins, where he created his own rules about gremlins. And we can talk about that now.
Yeah.
So the movie Gremlins opens with, I'm just going to get into the plot synopsis. Thank you, Wikipedia. It opens with the character Randall Pelter, a struggling inventor who visits Chinatown and finds an antique store where he hopes to find a Christmas present for his son, Billy. In the store, Randall encounters a small furry creature called a mogwai, which translates to devil or demon or spirit, depending on whether you're speaking Japanese, Cantonese, or Indian. The owner, Mr. Wing, refuses to sell the creature to Randall. However, his grandson secretly sells mogwai to Randall, warning him to remember 3 important rules. Never expose the mogwai to light. He hates light. Sunlight could kill him. Do not let him come into contact with water, and above all else, never feed him after midnight. Randall returns home and gives the young animal, the mogwai, to his son Billy as a Christmas gift. So that's kind of like the opening scene to this movie.
Yeah. And
what do you guys want to say about it so far?
As a kid, again, like hearing those rules as a kid, I was like, oh, okay. Wow, I was fascinated by the established law of the whole thing, but now I'm watching it. I'm like, can't feed them after midnight. What time zone? Like these are adult
wherever
problems. They are. Yeah, what the hell? Anyway,
my first thought of watching this movie was I love 80s movies, and just the way it looked, the lighting was so cool, the set was so cool. Of like just like everywhere they went in that first, like it was in China, right, or Korea? I forget where they were, but it was so. Was that?
I think just Chinatown.
Oh, I thought it was a different country. Was it not? I thought it was. Oh, whoops. Anyways, it looked so cool though. Wherever they were, like the aesthetic was awesome.
Yeah, the cinematography is great in a lot of these '80s movies, and I wonder who was. I should have looked this up. Who was cinematographer on this one? I'm gonna look it up. But
cinematography was great. It has that Steven Spielberg thumbprints all over it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I noticed that early on in this movie, we're doing like a long dolly shot through the city as Billy runs through town, and it's set to perky orchestral music. The movie is lit with like a lot of like backlighting, kind of what Spielberg would do in the 80s, almost like this warm noir, where everything's dark and starkly contrasted with a lot of shadows.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of warm red light. Especially with interiors, a lot of stuff lit by candle and bathed in red light.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very pretty 80s movie. Very well made. I like the aesthetic. I think that's my favorite part of this movie. It's this movie's technically a horror comedy, so it's lit very dark, like a horror movie. Cool.
But that works for it. That works for it because it walks that line of, you know what I mean? It's cute, but it's kind of horrifying. Cinematography is better this way than if it was all shot kind of like bright and kooky, you know. But,
it reminds me of the way that Goonies is shot, and I wouldn't be surprised to find that it was the same cinematographer. Because it definitely feels the same.
I did look it up. It's the guy's name is John Hora. He didn't do Goonies. He did the other Gremlins, but no, he did Twilight Zone the movie. He did do multiple Michael Jackson projects, including Smooth Criminal, the whole Moonwalker film, stuff like that. But nothing else really that big. Other Joe Dante stuff. That's pretty much it.
All right, so Billy gets this gift. Billy already has a pet. It's a dog named Barney, and Billy also works at a bank where he fears that his dog was going to be killed and captured and killed by the elderly Miss Deagle. They name the Mogwai Gizmo, and Billy makes sure to treat him well. When Billy's friend Pete, played by Corey Feldman, the world's greatest 80s child actor, Corey Feldman, accidentally spills a glass of water on Gizmo, 5 more Mogwai spawn out of his back. A more troublemaking sort, led by the aggressive Mogwai nicknamed Stripe. And he's distinguishable from the others by like a white mohawk that he has, kind of. Billy shows one of the Mogwai to his former science teacher, Mr. Hansen, spawning another Mogwai on whom Hansen experiments. Back at home, Stripe's gang tricks Billy into feeding them after midnight by severing the power cord on his bedside clock. Ooh. They once they're fed, they make cocoons, as does the teacher's creature. And shortly after, the cocoons hatch, and they emerge as mischievous reptilian monsters referred to as Gremlins, who torture Gizmo and try to murder Billy's mother. While Hansen, the science teacher, is himself killed by his gremlin.
Right.
Then
it's so funny.
This is about an hour into the film. We start transferring into the horror section. I think this is what you were talking about, Sean, the interesting second act.
Yeah, the second, I watched this with Emma and Beckett, and the second that science teacher took blood from the gremlin, Becca's like, he's dead. That guy's going to die. And I was like, no one's died yet in the movie. I'm not sure if this guy's actually going to die. I didn't know how far this movie was going to go. And he's like, no, he's for sure going to die. And then he definitely died. I don't know. I thought animatronics in the first half were very impressive. Gizmo looks great. Like, I thought that, I don't know. There's something about it. Even, like, I loved the dad's inventions. like all of his stupid, all of these little contraptions, like they all didn't work, but I just love the thought behind all of them. You know,
Totally, I totally agree.
Yeah,
I love kooky practical stuff like that, and I thought they all, you know, practical effects. I always enjoy them, even if they don't look the best. But I think everything in here still looks good by today's standards, personally.
Mm-hmm. Even like
I think the only problem with any of those props is that they just reek of 80s clunkiness. So
yes,
Sure.
I think you would see that in the 80s and be like, maybe that would be a real thing. But knowing what we know now about what worked in the 80s and what didn't,
yeah,
it's like, yeah, that's the 80s.
Are you talking about the devices that he makes, or are you talking
about
the
toilet on the go thing? You know?
yeah.
yeah. I'm just talking about how good the animatronics look. I wasn't even thinking about that.
I thought we were talking about the dad's.
I'm kind of talking about the dad's inventions too. But even like the egg cracker, like that is such an unnecessary product to exist. But I still liked that they made it for this. You know.
So I was reading and doing research on this movie. And I guess originally they floated the idea of having the gremlin creatures played by spider monkeys in a costume.
Oh, geez.
And as the story goes, they did a test. They actually did a spider monkey in a gremlin's costume in Joe Dante's office. Here's the story. They were like, we could do puppets, but it would be way too expensive.
Right.
What if we try spider monkeys in a costume?
That's
the
cheap.
monkey freaked out. The monkey like struggled to like rip its face off, so it's like running around the studio as a gremlin, like trying to rip its face off, defecating uncontrollably. So just like blasting the whole office, and then screaming. They can't get the thing to stop screeching, so it's like shitting all over the place. And the producer turns to the other and goes, "So puppets?" And that's when they decided to make these animatronics. Which ended up costing $30,000 to $40,000 each. So when you look at that movie theater scene later on, they have, I mean, over 100 animatronics on screen. That's a lot of dough they spent on these puppets.
Wow. I just can't believe they wanted to get spider monkeys to be in that movie.
Yeah, so what happened? Why was the monkey like? So did they feed it after midnight, or what was it?
I mean, did they think we're going to put monkeys in this costume and we're telling them to sit in these chairs and watch a movie, and that's gonna work? That's crazy.
Like they were gonna train these things to. I mean, this is a truly stupid idea. Let's be honest. Maybe one of the dumbest ideas of all time.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they didn't do it.
Wow.
So when this movie kicks in here, I was actually surprised at how violent it got.
Yeah.
And this movie, I guess, is one of the reasons we have a PG-13 rating. It's too violent for PG. It's not violent enough for R.
Yeah.
This movie's technically rated PG, but they microwave a gremlin. They put one's head in the blender. They stab one to death.
The scene with the mom fighting the gremlins.
Yeah.
Beckett and I were laughing so fucking hard during that. Like, we were both so shocked by what was happening that, like, I could not believe the gore and how intense it was. Shocked.
Yeah.
So I was reading that this movie is written by Christopher Columbus. He wrote Home Alone. He wrote Home Alone 2. He directed the first couple Harry Potter movies. In early drafts of this movie, the mother loses that fight. The gremlins decapitate her, throw her head down the stairs, and then kill the family dog.
God.
So this movie, I was actually watching this movie thinking, like, this mom is really violent. Like, she's going psycho in these gremlins. What do they do that's so bad? But I guess in another version, her actions were very tame compared to what they were going to do to her.
That's funny.
Wow.
Thankfully, she survives in the current iteration of the film.
Yeah, with the rating thing, you could definitely tell. Yeah, this movie walks that line. It's like, this is PG, but it was also the same year that the famous one that really pushed that rating situation too was Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom.
Oh yeah.
Both of these came out the same like summer or whenever. that year, both in 1984. And so yeah, after those, it was like, yo, we need like another rating. Like, how do we?
Yeah, right. So let's keep in mind that in 1984, we were taking children to movies where people were ripping each other's hearts out and putting gremlins in the microwave and blending their faces. And these kindergartners were really not enjoying it, I'll tell you.
That's what I thought too. Well, when I was gonna watch this movie, I asked Jenny, who had seen it. I'm like, "Do we show this like Lennon 2 is PG?" And she's like, "No, don't look at the rating." And it's like, okay. And so we didn't. But I'm so glad we saw it because otherwise, I'm like, "Oh, it's PG, it's fine," and it would have been a mistake.
Yeah, this is like the same as a Care Bears movie.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's G. Well, there was that one heinous Care Bear movie. You know,
that was all fucked up.
Another one.
Yeah, but I remember being a kid and like I kept hearing about Gremlins. I was like, should I check this out? And I remember, you know, my parents weren't so concerned with the rating as much as the subject matter. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So they were like, you know, I'm like, look, this is PG. What's the big deal? And they were like, yeah, you might be kind of like, you know, it was like they lumped it in the same with Alien. They were like, you could watch it, but you might be kind of upset by it. And so that just them saying that, I was like, maybe I won't watch this. I don't. I didn't know. Anyway,
parents know best.
They do.
Know best. Hey, I want to point out this movie is filmed on the exact same location as Back to the Future.
Which I totally, Derek, I saw that movie theater and thought Back to the Future for sure. And I had to look it up because I knew it.
On the Universal Studios backlot. If you've ever done the backlot tour, you've been on the set of this film. So, you know, you might see Marty McFly running around. You might see a gremlin in 1950. Keep your eyes open.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What was that? A year later? Oh, they were probably shooting it around not that.
Probably the same time, honestly. Yeah.
Spielberg, and the architecture looks exactly the same. It was fresh.
Yeah. Spielberg owned that studio at that time, man.
Anyway.
So after the attack on Mom, all of the gremlins are killed except for Stripe, the leader of the gang. He escapes to the local YMCA and jumps into a pool. Oh, big bad mistake. You never get these guys wet. The pool overflows with hundreds of gremlins, which take over the town. And this is where we kind of get the real meat of the film.
Right.
When you talk about a movie called Gremlins, this is it. Bunch of these little creatures running wild all over town, just messing everybody's day up.
I want to say real quick, that pool effect was very impressive to me too. All it was smoke and the water bubbling and lighting, but it looked cool. It was awesome.
Hey, never underestimate in one constant throughout filmmaking then and now. Never underestimate how good water and smoke can come together. I mean, you watch Blade Runner, and half of the reason that movie looks so good, get it wet and put some smoke in here. Done. Looks great.
Yeah, true.
Elements. We're talking elements, people. Get elemental with your filmmaking. Okay, so that mean old woman who wanted to kill Billy's dog, well, guess what? The gremlins fucking roast her. She's dead. I won't spoil it, but oh man, they get her so good.
I say spoil it. This whole thing is a spoiler.
What do they do? So Gremlins, you know, they never touch on this, but I thought it was a nice touch that Gremlins are creatures that break machinery, and the heroes come from a family where the father, the patriarch, is like a failed inventor. So this guy is steeped and surrounded. His whole life is failed machinery. I thought that they were going to like draw more of a connection between that, but it's just kind of like a thematic touch. Okay, nice. I see the connection there. This old woman, she's rich. She has a huge mansion. She has one of those like stair seats where you sit on it and it like lifts you up the stairs slowly.
Yeah.
Yo, the gremlins, they hack the seat. They send it into supernova mode. And they cannon launch this woman out of her house. It's actually like highly gruesome and really comedic to see like an elderly lady launch through her sky and then just like hit the pavement in front of a couple of
so
cops.
hard. Oh, it was awesome. That was so funny.
Yeah, that got me. I mean, even now, like, you know, all these years later, that got a laugh out of me. I liked it.
The Gremlins also invade a local bar where Billy's love interest works, and you just get like a party scene of these Gremlins getting drunk and being rowdy in a bar. I like this scene. As stupid and boring as that sounds, I think it's a great scene. Just imagine Gremlins partying. That's just it's the token party scene.
You know what, Derek? That was when the movie lost its wheels for me. That scene, I hated it. I didn't. She was serving them beers, and I was like, oh, I'm out. I'm out of this. Like this has gotten too weird.
I felt like that movie, that scene was a chance to show off what they could do with $40,000 animatronics, and it was a lot of. Honestly, I was just getting a kick out of their hands grabbing stuff and the choreography between all of them.
Yeah,
I was impressed. Just that, it was like being at Chuck E. Cheese and seeing the animatronic show. That was entertaining to me.
It was like them playing poker, and there's the one with the lipstick on and all this stuff. It's like this. Now this is the '80s that I hate. Of like, I didn't.
Total
I didn't
disagree.
Like yeah,
Total
I knew
disagree.
you would, Rocco. I saw that and thought this is something I would hate and Rocco would love.
Yeah. I mean,
let me tell you, I knew Rocco would love it too. I liked it because I liked the lighting. I liked the technical. I was technically impressed by the filmmaking. The content was very 80s, and I think Rocco would like the content. Yes.
Oh yeah, it's off the wheels of that. Yeah, it's totally but for me, I love that. It's become they're trying to outpopulate us, so they're imitating all the stupid shit we do, and yeah, it's a corny 80s movie, so I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
After the bar scene, they decide every gremlin in town goes to one movie theater. Why are they all magically attracted to go see a Christmas screening of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? I don't know.
I didn't get that either.
But you know what, Rocco, you asked, we can't feed these things after midnight. Well, what time zone are we in? I think sometimes we just have to say magic is strange, and we don't quite understand how magic works, but somehow it works. They're all magically attracted to this movie theater. And Billy and his girlfriend blow the movie theater up. I could go into it more, but that's what
you don't need to. Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, all of the gremlins are killed except for Spike. Spike escapes to a local shopping center. If he can find water, he can repopulate. So the end goal of this movie is to kill Spike before he can find water. Spike is also like a homicidal maniac. He has guns and crossbows and chainsaws, so it's not quite so easy to kill him. In fact, Billy goes after him, and Billy almost dies. It's Gizmo who saves the day as like a sidekick. And the sun is rising, and it's like the classic monster. Wait, how do you kill a monster? I'm realizing now this happens way more often than it should in movies. You just expose it to sunlight. Whether it's a fucking vampire or a bunch of vampires or Freddy Krueger or Gremlin, the sun comes up and that's the end of the horror movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They pull the shade up. The Gremlin's exposed to sunlight. He actually melts in a badass practical effect where he turns into like a melting skeleton. It's so
that
cool.
was cool.
Very 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
80s horror was filled with melting skeletons, and I love it. Maybe my favorite like horror
green
aesthetic
slime
of all
and
time.
shit. No, I agree.
Dude,
that looked cool.
That's why The Thing, which that's maybe an episode we should do at some point, but that's why the Thing still grosses me out. It's full of all this melting shit, and it's all real. It's all like disgusting.
Yeah.
And I love that. So anyway, that I dug that.
It does make me wonder why it peaked there. Like movies today, they don't do that anymore. But like, you don't remember the gruesome shit or practical effects so much because it's all like CG and it doesn't mean anything.
Money.
But like back then,
This is why.
yeah. But it's not cheap to do special effects either. Like computer effects aren't the cheapest thing to do.
Yeah.
But you can render your computer effects and see.
Yeah.
So a big problem with practical effects is when they work, it's like, why don't they always do this? But you watch a lot of movies where they don't work, and you think, who allowed the monster to look this bad?
Yeah.
It's because sometimes you finish the project, and it's like, we don't have time to fix this.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's another benefit of computers. You can quickly change things. And that ends up saving money too.
I get
Cost
that.
effective.
Yeah.
But they did a new, going back to The Thing. Again, that movie's super well known for its practical gross effects. they did a new one, like, I don't know how, not that long ago. And it was sort of a reboot, I don't know what the hell it was. But I know with that movie, Sean, they set out to do that. Like, yo, we're bringing that back. We're doing it.
Yeah.
And they showed it to the studio, and the studio was like, cool. Go over it in CG and just make it even crazier.
Oh, Jesus, like, no.
Oh, okay. And, like, I've heard about that 100 times. Like, where where a filmmaker does set out to do that, and, like, we got to up the ante. We got to up the ante, and just gets, it's like everything's got to have a certain look.
Yeah, Gremlins is a time capsule of the 80s practical effects. Super gory. That is a huge point for it in my book. Oh, wait. The end of the movie, we should say, Mr. Wing shows up and basically says, you were never supposed to have Gizmo. My grandson did like a backroom deal. Give him back. You don't deserve him.
Stupid
he takes Gizmo away, and off he goes into the night. Will we see him again? You'll have to watch Gremlins 2, the new batch, to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, have you guys seen that? You guys haven't seen that.
No.
I've seen both of these movies when I was a child, and I remember nothing from them.
The second one, not to go into it, whatever, maybe someday on here, but that was the one I had seen most of when I was a kid. And again, all I remember from it was incredible effects, ups the ante even from this one. But you really watch it now, and it is the most cutting takedown of Hollywood sequels. If you watch it now, it is the director didn't see a point in doing a sequel, didn't want to do it. They threw $1 billion at him, and he went, all right, fine. And it is like a mockery of how sequels always try to outdo each other. It's interesting. You should see it if you're ever just like bored and you want to, you want to see another Gremlins movie.
Well,
you'll get something out of it.
The director, Joe Dante, says he likes that one better than this one.
Yeah.
So.
He didn't want to do it, but he did it, and then it ended up being, like I said, it's a really cutting takedown of the Hollywood system. And you'll see that now as an adult, and I think you'll appreciate it. I think you'll appreciate that movie more than this one. Even though I like this one, but I think you'll get that out of it. To go back a little bit though, I totally know what you're saying though, Sean, and like my context for Gremlins is that it is over the top and insane. So none of those scenes that you talked about bothered me, and I love that the 80s-ness of it all. But I do know what you're saying in terms of like there's legitimate how do I say it? Legitimate, real, tense threat. Even though it's weird, that still exists all the way through the mom getting attacked and like all that stuff. And then when they're serving him at the bar, it's like, are we is this not tense anymore? Are we just
yeah, this is a joke now. I get
Looney Tunes. I do get that, but that's always been my context. What's that?
I was laughing the whole time.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I think it's supposed to be funny. But yeah, I was always like, also like, what's gonna happen? No one wants to happen. It's like now we just got so wacky that it lost me.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
I think in my mind it just gets so ridiculous that they're almost mirroring shitty people. And
I wanted to say something about this movie too. Chris Columbus, we said, wrote this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote this movie as a spec script to show off his writing capabilities. Mm-hmm. It was a demonstration of his talent. Mm-hmm. This was never intended to be a movie, actually.
I don't know.
So Steven Spielberg, I guess, read the script and loved it so much. He bought it and then insisted on making it a movie. And then I read that he almost gave this to Tim Burton to make this Tim Burton's first film.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And the only reason that didn't happen is because Tim Burton hadn't directed a feature length at that point. He had only done shorts, and Steven Spielberg was like, well, we don't know if you can handle it, which is hilarious because this movie might be a lot more famous if it was Tim Burton's first film.
Huh.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I love the idea that Christopher Columbus could just write a script not knowing what's going to happen. Like, hey, I just want to show people in Hollywood that I can write a script.
Yeah.
And then launches his whole career. So let that be a lesson to everybody out there. That's very inspirational.
Yeah.
If you ask me. Gremlins.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah. I will say I didn't know until now how I knew Spielberg produced it, but I really didn't know how involved he was. He was very involved. Like I think nowadays he'll produce a movie, but he's kind of like off, like he produced Transformers. His imprint ain't on that movie, all right.
Right.
But back in the day, kind of, he produced Poltergeist, and people still argue if it's a Spielberg movie or not,
Mm-hmm.
But he had a lot to do with the design and all that in this movie, and I cracked up I was reading about that, and I was very surprised how involved he was, and I was cracking up at the story that they showed the first cut to the studio, and their note was, maybe there's too many Gremlins. There's just kind of a lot of them. Do you think maybe you could reduce that? It's just kind of too much. And then his response to them was, yeah, we're thinking of cutting them all out of the movie. We might rename it People. That made me laugh. I don't know.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Cool. Let's give it some popcorn shakes. What do you say?
Sure. Okay. Your pick, I say you start off.
I'm gonna give it. I'm a sucker for practical effects. This did it. It was very 80s, but all of that comes together into something I really like. But it doesn't affect my life necessarily. I'm gonna give it 3.5. Yeah, I think it's totally entertaining. I'm really blown away by that last act where they're chasing that other gremlin and stuff like that. The way they pulled all that off is very impressive. But it isn't like an emotional story or anything. I'll give it a 3.5. I think I feel good about that.
Okay. Sure. Derek, what about you?
I give this movie a 3. I do think this movie, for every positive thing we've said, is a little too long, especially in the first half. There's a lot of setting up characters and setting up the story and the rules. Get to the part where we're putting gremlins in the microwave. It takes an hour to get there.
Right.
So for the slow beginning, that's made up for by the cool effects and the exciting end. So I give a solid 3 out of 5.
I will say before we get to your rating, Sean, I do want to say in response to that, the first half, I think that's kind of why I like it. I kind of like that they maintain this movie as kind of like a, family movie, and it builds to that point. I think if it went into that too quick, I might not like it as much. But I see your argument too. I mean, it might be.
Well, there's an hour. There's an hour of it. There's an hour of Corey Feldman works at a Christmas tree, and his costume is too big. Oh, the dad's inventions, or he tries to sell them everywhere he goes. It's episodic, sitcom-y stuff. Let's get to the Gremlins. I mean, I don't need so much backstory on every single character in this movie.
Sure. Okay.
That's my take.
I loved the second act. The first one was a little slow, like Derek said, and then the third one, as I mentioned, lost me. But I will say that I give it 2.5 takes. Mostly for the practical effects, and that scene with the mom killing all of them was hilarious. So I'm glad I watched it.
Nice. I'm gonna round your guys' scores up from 2.5 and 3.5 to 3 and 4, just to make it easy on us.
Sure.
This movie gets 10 out of 15.
Okay.
Wow.
That sounds right to me. I'm happy with that.
It's pretty good. All right. So the next week is my pick. And I'm picking this movie because my father-in-law loaned me this DVD a year ago and has kept asking me to watch it. So I'm going to watch it here, but make them watch it. We're going to watch It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. It's a comedy from the 60s.
I think so.
I don't really know much about it, but I'm told it's great by him. So, we'll know. Who knows? We'll find out next week.
Okay. Isn't that movie 6 hours long or some shit?
Is it that long? Wait, is it long?
I think it's really long.
Wait.
So,
Well, I
thanks
don't.
a lot.
I didn't know it was a long movie. It's a comedy. I thought it was like an hour and a half. Is it not?
Well, look at the title. I mean, that tells you right there. How long is the title?
It's a long movie. No, I don't know. I don't know.
I might be confused. No, Rocco. It's 3 hours and 39 minutes.
No, it's not. You're lying to me. Is it really that long? We're not gonna watch this.
Is it that
long?
2 hours and 39 minutes.
Okay.
Well, that I'll make you guys watch. But if it was 3 hours, I was changing.
For some reason, I get it confused with The Great Escape, and that movie is like 1 billion hours long.
No, I'm not making you guys watch a movie over 3 hours. That's messed up. But if it's under 3, well, we can.
Get ready for my next
2
movie.
hours and 40 minutes.
That's still longer than a comedy.
2 hours and 40 minutes of a 60s comedy. No wonder your dad's been begging you to watch this, because nobody will do it.
God damn it. Well,
All right,
I can change it. It's not too late. It's not too
We're
late.
gonna do
Derek is picking the one after that, so he could just balance it out by Derek. Pick a short one for your next one. Pick like a TV, your favorite episode of Seinfeld.
I was gonna do Das Boot.
I was almost gonna do What We Do in the Shadows. I've never seen that either, but that's short.
Nah, you already said it.
All right, it's too late.
Mad World.
Okay.
And my pick in 2 weeks. Get ready. My pick is the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
You picked Casino, and that was 3 hours. So stop.
Yeah, I didn't know that actually. I didn't know.
Yeah, there you go.
No, this one it's just barely under 3 hours. I'm looking at IMDb. It has a 2 out of 10. This is gonna be good.
A 2 out of 10? Is it really?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No,
oh my God. All right. Well, we'll see. Find out what we think next week on Mega64 Movie Club.
Thank you. Good night.